Welcome to Reputation Revolution. This is the podcast where we help individuals like you to establish your voice in the marketplace, enhance the credibility of that voice, extend the reach of your story and your message, and finally, extract value from your efforts in building a meaningful personal brand that's both recognized and respected. Now, on with the show.
Hello and welcome to the Reputation Revolution podcast. My name is Brendan Keogh, and if you're hearing my voice, it means I've died and gone to heaven because I'm the guest host of this week's podcast. And here with me, I've got a very special guest, Trevor Young. Welcome to your own podcast.
Welcome to my own podcast. Thank you, Brendan. Yes, people who listen to this podcast enough, virtually every second episode is you and I riffing on a previous episode, a previous conversation that I've had with or done an interview with a guest. But this time we're going to do something different. We're winding down season 7 of Reputation Revolution, and we're going to, I'm already going into host mode. I'm going to go into guest mode. You take over.
Yeah, thanks, mate. We're spinning the spotlight around this week back on yourself. So hopefully you're sitting uncomfortably and ready for some grilling. Now, what we're talking about in this episode is, I guess, a reframing of a model you've been working on over your career, I guess. And it's encapsulated in a diagram which is becoming your own PR machine. And we're delving into specifically demystifying PR and making it work for your personal brand. That's so right. Tell us a little bit about this diagram, and I think you've got a reference for people playing along at home. They can check it out.
Yes, and if you're out on the road or walking or jogging or doing something while you're listening to this, look, there is a visual to go with this, but we will walk you through that. What we're going to do is really demystify public relations because people have got various views on what it is. Even people in the industry get it wrong. So we're going to demystify it, and because I believe if you understand PR and you put it into practice in your business, whether you're running a personal brand-based business or you're the head of a multinational, doesn't really matter. It is going to be to your benefit. So stick around for that. But yes, I've popped this diagram up on my website. So and we'll remind you about this later, and I'll put it in the show notes. But it's at trevoryoung.me/PR machine. trevoryoung.me/PR machine, and you'll see this pyramid diagram, which we're about to walk through in a linear fashion, and we're going to be dissecting all things PR or public relations, call it what you will.
Excellent. And my first question to you, Trevor, is why should business owners think in terms of PR? I mean, isn't it for celebrities and wayward footballers? Mostly. What's it mean for business owners?
Look, I think PR is I think it's the forerunner to marketing. And so everyone's doing marketing, but I'm a huge believer, and I've been in the space for quite a few decades. I've basically spent my whole professional life in public relations and the media as well. But the key, my key philosophy is that PR and its various arms, and we will unpack what those arms are. It does the heavy lifting for your paid for marketing things. So if you are going to do ads, you're going to spend money. This is not an anti-advertising thing. If you've already built trust, reputation, visibility, influence in the marketplace, then your ads are going to work harder. If you're wanting to do direct calls to people or email them to get them into a boardroom presentation, if you've done your work in a PR sense, it's going to be a lot easier than if you haven't. So PR is all about building your brand, your reputation, visibility, influence, trust, carving out a thought leadership positioning in the marketplace. All of these things can be achieved through a strategic public relations program, and it's a 365 days of the year type situation, whereas when you get into the paid side, often that is campaign-based. So it's doing the heavy lifting, and it's the things you can do and make part of your culture, personal brand culture, your business brand as well.
Excellent. Now, as we've discussed, it's a pyramid structure with different levels. As we delve into each level, is it a bit like Scientology? You've got to ascend through each level one at a time, sequentially?
Look, you can do anything you like, but again, I'm about building the base, and you build the base through your... And I'll use the phrase often here, content-led communications, which is, essentially, I guess, what this is, because I think content, again, my philosophy, content sits at the heart of it. So what we'll cover today is the broader marketing landscape and what that looks like, and that is contained in this pyramid structure. So this is your marketing communications pyramid. And then we'll tease out all the elements of PR that go with it. Now, there are grey areas, and I don't want to get into too many semantics, but this is obviously, this is my philosophy, the way I see things. And for my sins, I've worked in media, public relations, marketing communications. I've been involved in sponsorships and partnerships and content for many years, and social media from the early days. I've taken courses in direct marketing going back a number of years. I've taken courses in advertising. I've tried to see the big picture at all times. And so and having dealt with probably 1,000 clients over the journey, and done a lot of articles and written books and interviewed people on the podcast. This is a what's the word? The encapsulation of all that thinking, connecting the dots.
The culmination, Trev.
The culmination is the word I want. Encapsulation is not a bad word as well. Mm-hmm. So let me talk about the broader... We'll walk through the marketing communications pyramid, and then I want to get into what public relations is, or PR as people know it, because we want people to become their own PR machine. I'm a believer that, you don't need to outsource this. This is something you can learn and do if you philosophically understand it and get your head in the right space for it. Excellent. So if you're thinking a pyramid, so we're going to paint a picture here, Brendan. We have at the base owned media and social media. And we'll come back to these. Mm-hmm. So they're the base, forms your base, owned media and social media. Owned media are those channels that you own and control. So your podcast, your blog, a live stream show, an email newsletter, webinars, events, your email subscriber list. And social media obviously is all the channels that we don't own and control, but we can put content on and publish it. Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, LinkedIn, etc. So those two work hand in hand. The next layer up is earned media, and this is, if you want to break it down a bit further, this is media and influencer relations, generating editorial exposure and implied third-party endorsement via media outlets, and that's traditional media. Now we've got individuals running their own podcasts like this, and then you've got brands and companies running their own online channels as well. So the definition of media is just completely and utterly fragmented and changed. Mm-hmm. Next layer up is partner media, and this is sponsorships and community partnerships. And they may or may not be earned social media, paid media. They could have elements of that. And then we're moving up the pyramid to paid media. So that's, your digital ads, your social media advertising, Google ads, paid search. I put SEO in there because you normally got to pay to do it properly. But also you can put in there, if you like, traditional radio, TV, newspapers, magazines, rented audiences. And paid media is generally there to, create more leads and sales. And maybe from a content marketing perspective, it might be to amplify your content efforts. Moving up to the top again, then it's smaller again and high touch, which is direct. So direct communications could be anything from emailing or an email or a phone pitch to someone, face-to-face meetings, boardroom presentations. So when you're trying to gain access to key players in your sphere, and key players could be influencers, clients, customers, potential recruits, partners. Again, PR tends to look much, much broader than just clients and customers. And then all of these things work together. Now, a lot of people who are running businesses are probably doing some or all of these, but are they doing them separately or are they coordinated? And there's a big difference between putting your marketer's hat on and putting your PR hat on. And that's what we probably should get into in a tick. But what's your thinking of, I mean, you've got a marketing background. I'm more from PR, you're more from marketing. What's your thoughts on this marketing communications pyramid? Owned and social at the bottom, then social media. Sorry, I'm going to start that again. Too many medias. Owned and social media at the bottom, earned media, partner media, paid media, and then direct communications.
Well, I've got a couple of questions for you, Trev.
Fire away.
So earned media. Right at the top, you've got a undisclosed person planting the flag right at the top. They've
That's
reached
success.
the summit.
That's to denote success at
success.
the pinnacle, the peak of the pyramid.
And what are you talking success in terms of what?
Well, this is the thing, again, putting a PR hat on versus a marketer's hat. A marketer's hat tends to be very leads and sales driven because that's what their role is. A PR hat tends to look at things differently. So it might be a repositioning of your brand. It might be, or a positioning of your brand if you're new. And when we say brand, we're talking personal brand, business brand, could be a non-profit brand, that side of things. Sometimes people go into new territories, so they need to establish themselves. As a personal brand who's known for something, you might want to re-establish yourself and evolve into something different. Yes, it could also be leads and sales, but it could be, I've got some clients who their key issue at the moment is not necessarily clients, but it's recruitment. Recruitment is a big issue. And for some, going directly, and I've got other clients that going directly to clients and customers isn't that to their particular clients isn't that easy, but they're better served by going through influencers and the people who influence them, in their case, accountants. So, you know, it's how, what does success look like for you? And that's just by taking a strategic look at your business. And, you know, what are you trying to achieve? And as we all know, we've all gone through that from business goals and but what business goals and aspirations. But then what is your communications and marketing goals underneath that should support that?
I noticed also earned media has lightning bolts, which I'm tipping signifies this is where the rubber hits the road, folks.
They just look good. It's hard to get these little icons out of Canva sometimes. It's built with Canva. Look, the lightning bolts are there to signify that it can, you know, get you noticed and boost your visibility. You know, when there's lightning in the sky, we all look up and take notice of it. So it's about getting more noticed. So let's unpack earned media, shall we? Because earned media is very much a part of a PR remit, but it's what people think PR is, and that's it. So let's get the elephant in the room. What is PR? PR does not stand for press release. PR is not publicity. You know, it's a part of it. And earned media is really, you know, earning the right to be on a podcast to be interviewed, earning the right for someone to share your stuff on social media, earning the right for an influencer, for example, to talk about you, or a blogger to list you in their top list. You know, this podcast just got listed. Someone just put up, who I don't know, put up on LinkedIn the top PR and marketing podcasts they listen to, and this was one of them. I've earned the right for that to happen. I didn't proactively do that. And so but if you look at it traditionally, it's, you know, getting quoted in a newspaper or a profile in your industry publication or an opinion piece in a vertical title or a guest post on someone's blog or an interview on someone else's podcast, right? You're earning the right. Now, there's two parts to that. There's outbound and inbound. The outbound is you're pitching that out and, you know, whether you're doing it yourself or you've got someone doing it on your behalf. And yes, it could be a PR person. It could be a publicist. It could be just a podcast booker, someone who does it for people and just specializes in that if it's the podcasting side. So that's outbound. Inbound is where the magic happens, when people come to you because you've built your brand and your reputation and it's such, and you're so visible and you're gaining influence in the marketplace and people are talking about you. You're known, you're liked, you're trusted, you're front of mind, in the marketplace and people are talking about you. That's when the inbound comes. So if you put the inbound plus the outbound, that's when magic really happens. So for a lot of people, that's where PR or public relations starts. Get me some free PR. Well, you can't get free PR. This is PRable. That's bullshit. There's no such thing. It's just Hollywood's version of what PR is. You have got publicists, and that's what all publicists do is get you ink, virtual ink, and there's a big role for that, and it's a really hard thing to do, and it needs a lot of experience to do it well at a really top level. But that doesn't mean anyone can't learn how to do it if you build your brand well enough.
And I like you've grouped, for those who can't see it, owned, social and earned are all grouped together. Yep. So obviously that as the foundation, the real foundation of what we're talking about.
Yeah, well, you build your base 365 days a year, and that does the heavy lifting. So if, today people are going to check you out, they're not going to ring you. If you're in B2B especially, they're not going to ring you, like they're going to do if you're in B2C. They'll look at your reviews of your business, or, people are going to check you out before they do business with you. They're going to, if it's on a professional basis, it's going to be LinkedIn. People are going to check you out. If someone's going to interview you or consider you for a podcast interview, they're going to check you out. Even whether you're pitching or not, whether you've come to them. If there's, a journalist puts out on Twitter and says, oh, look, I'm interested in talking about an expert about such and such, and someone says, oh, speak to Brendan, that person, that journalist is going to check you out. And what do they find? And what they find do the professional you justice. So this is where content and owned media channels sit at the bottom, and social, because, again, they're other channels. You don't own those channels because anything can happen, but you control the content that goes out on it. And that's how you can also reach out to journalists and influencers and build your network and your online community as well. So it's a way to amplify. So, if you're doing all of those things together, and as you know, Brendan, when you're doing owned media, you're promoting it through social, you're talking with other influencers who might turn into earned media opportunities for you, blah, 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 blah. Everything's connected. All of those three things. If you're not connecting owned, earned, and social, you're wasting your time. Well, you're not wasting your time, potentially, but you could be doing a heck of a lot better.
And is it fair to say that a lot of the podcasts a lot of the interviews that you've done this season, we've reviewed, fit in that owned, earned, and social component primarily?
Yeah, look, I think so. We've done case studies. We've talked about building trust. Sometimes the concepts are probably more, we don't talk necessarily about the tactics and the tools, but we talk about the result of just doing stuff. And today we can't just do one thing, not one channel. We're going to have to build a professional brand. And we're talking about, building a thought leader brand and raising yourself above others in your market space. Take the handbrake off for a moment and let's just go for broke. Then you're going to need to have omnipresence. And omnipresence is strategic omnipresence. This is a phrase I've used for 10 years, and I love it because there's a PR in there somewhere, omnipresence. But strategic omnipresence. It's not about being necessarily everywhere. It's about being in the right channels where your audience is and saying the right things and, building conversation and relationships with people in that respect. Going back to PR, and it doesn't stand for press release. I actually like the idea it stands for public relationships because everything's public now, whereas before it was more behind closed doors. But PR to me simply is, it's all about deepening the level of connection with the people who matter the most to the success of your business or your cause or your issue, depending on what you're trying to achieve. That's public relations. Did I say there that it's about getting in New York Times? No. You might have to build relationships with the people who can get you into the New York Times. It might be one particular journalist you have to build a relationship with in order to make that happen. Or it might be a couple of people. So, you build relationships with people to get them to introduce you to someone who gets you to introduce you to someone who introduces you to a particular journalist or freelancer working on the New York Times. But it could be someone like You know, are you in an industry where the industry body, the professional association, is really important? And maybe that, you know, everyone in that professional association is someone you need is a potential client. So you want to speak at their conference, for example. Well, then how are you going to work your way into that? You know, maybe it's sitting down with, you know, the chairman or the president or whatever of that association, having a coffee. That's PR.
Well, as
strategic PR.
As a communicator, I like that focus on the audience, you know, making sure that starting with who are we talking to, who is the public that we're talking to. So that's pretty powerful. Looking up the pyramid, we've got a greyed out section around partner media. So
yes.
Do you want to talk on why that's highlighted?
Yeah, I've got that in grey. So at the bottom, we're the ones where the PR remit really sits, and then we move into a grey area, which is partner media. Now, partner media, as I mentioned, could be sponsorships, it could be community partnerships or partnerships with an individual, but there's you know, whether or not there's a paid element or not is kind of immaterial at this point. I mean, I've come from PR practice, being in agencies and running agencies and working with the big agencies and doing all that. And we were often doing things around sponsorship. Sometimes we'd set up the sponsorship and organise the payment and the management of it, but more often we were leveraging an existing sponsorship, or part of the role was we wanted to get deeper into an organisation, an industry, and become better known in that my particular client. And, you know, we'd then someone would have there's a partnership that we wanted to build with, again, an association. That might be a partnership, or it might be a community non-profit that you get involved with because it's a cause close to your heart or close to the heart of your audience as well. So there's nothing's off the table in that. It's just, you know, you're leveraging someone else's event property or organisational property to ultimately reach your audience. And, you know, of course, it's got to make sense. It's got to be strategic. You don't want to waste too much money doing it. Do you leverage it? If it's more of a community partnership, you've got to, you know, make it about the community organisation or the non-profit or the cause. It's not about you, the brand. So this is where it begins. It's probably a little bit more out of the personal branding side and a bit more into the business brand.
What, looking at those levels, how many of your clients do all of them versus, you know, what sort of percentage, once we start getting up into paid media, which most people have dabbled in at the very least.
Yeah.
Do you find most people are doing all of these things, or there's gaps?
Yeah, there's lots of gaps and there's lots of dabbling, and we've all dabbled. And it's because there's so many moving parts to this. Again, my philosophy, just going back to that, is owned media, social media, earned media. That's your base. You keep building that again and again. If you're in a position and you need to, some people don't. Organic is enough for them. They build their profile, their reputation. Again, personal brand wise is what this show's all about, but you know, often that leaches into your business brand. If you're an entrepreneur and you're running your own company, your own business, then you know the heavy lifting's being done all the time, again and again and again. So that's when I work with clients, they're the ones that I look at. Earned media is great, but if a journalist is going to check you out, and this is around building a thought leader brand. You know, you want to build a thought leader brand, you want to be known for this, and you got, or you're an expert, and you've got all this expertise. You're starting to pitch, I don't know, radio interviews, podcast interviews, opinion pieces, all of that sort of stuff. But they go to the editors, the researchers, the podcasters, everyone will check you out. Again, what will they find? So if you haven't done the heavy lifting there, the heavy lifting in that regard is your owned media channels and your social media channels, because they're going to check you out on that score. So to my mind, that builds into the earned media. Now, some people dodge the media. They're not interested in being on other people's podcasts. They're not interested in dealing with journalists. They might maybe pitch something to their industry magazine if that's relevant. So some clients do, some don't care at all. So that's a thing. This is optimum, though. If you want to take it to another level and you want to continue growing organically, earned media has got a really, really big role. If you go straight into paid, of course, anyone can do that, but it's expensive and it's hard to do because people don't like ads. They don't like being interrupted. They got, they've blocked things on their websites. They've got blockers on their phone, So, yes, advertise when need be, but have that base in place.
And that's part of the reason of having that base is your message when you do decide to pull the trigger on paid.
Yes.
You've really got that down pat. You've refined it, you've developed it, and it's going to be much more better chance of being effective.
And your message on an ad is designed to get leads and sales, for example. It's designed to convert. It's designed to get people to download. It's designed to get people to visit something. And if you're more of an e-commerce type play, that's the business you run, or you're selling stuff off your site, which is basically e-commerce, then paid's going to be a big thing. And then it's a conversion play.
And, looking at some of the feedback, the insights that I've gained from your this season in particular of the algorithms of these social media giants and how difficult it is to just reach the people you are connected to.
Yes.
Right. And that's where paid is just really it says in the diagram here, you've got to amplify your message, grow your audience, etc. But even that amplify is just being able to extend the reach so that you actually reach more of the people you're already connected with. That's
right. Some people are using paid digital media to extend the reach of their voice and their content. So that's when, again, what are you doing it for? Have a reason to do it. That's when it makes sense. And so, maybe your goal is, and probably for a lot of people, your goal should be to build your email list because that's an owned media play. That's what you'll own that. No one can take that away from you. Unless you hit the wrong button, you erase your whole database, which I have a friend that's done that. But at the end of the day, he still owns it. You still own that database, that subscriber list. So maybe you've got content out there which attracts people, but you need paid amplification. There's downloads. You only have to be on LinkedIn for a little bit to find, there'll be ads on LinkedIn to download something and, a content play or a report or a survey or whatever. And that will put, that's a way of a value exchange, getting you on their email list and then the journey starts. And that's very an accepted practice in B2B world. And, but it starts with content down the bottom. So when it comes to content too, this, without putting too fine a point on it, but there's content that I think falls really nicely in the PR remit, and that's telling the thought leadership type content, the content that positions you, the content that's I guess shows the human side of the business or behind the scenes of what it is you do professionally, that human side of things, and to a degree utility based content, which is educating people and educating your clients. When content marketers per se get into it, people who are more marketing focused using content for their marketing means versus reputation means, then, a lot of B2B companies have got that and they've got the sales funnel and that, they create content that's designed all the way down the line. Whereas, when you're doing thought leadership content, that's not necessarily, as we've spoken often on this show, leadership content's not necessarily addressing a challenge or a pain point of your client or customer. It's getting people thinking about stuff. It's cutting through with a story and a message that's might freak people out, but it'll get you noticed, and from that you build your online community. Mark Schaefer, who's been on the show, best-selling author and one of the top marketing bloggers in the world. He's a classic example where a lot of his articles, he's really pointed, spiky points of view articles, quite in your face and uncomfortable reading for, his audience, marketers.
Yeah, well, and, I think that thought leadership, whether it's spiky or not, but that thought leadership content, I'd still like to think with my marketer's hat on that is a legitimate marketing content. It's a longer play perhaps than some of the funnels that you've talked about. But yeah, ultimately it's about attracting the right people to do business with you and showcasing what you'll like to do business with along the way. So fast tracks those other marketing activities, and when you do get in front of them, they're already well committed.
Correct. Now, from a personal branding point of view, you're probably going to be doing your own stuff. So we have sort of started blending into a business brand issue, but I know a lot of our listeners, they run their own businesses as well, or they work in a company where it's quite big and they are marketers. Now, that's a controversial thing. Am I trying to say marketers shouldn't do this and PR people should only do this? What I'm saying is knowing that what PR people do and what the PR remit is. The PR remit is it's about, marketers, they're in a habit of selling. That's what they have. That is what marketing is about. Now, maybe it's softened and changed, and there's some marketers who are less about, sales and more about the brand. But most marketers that I know, sales is number one. And if they're employed on sales, And yes, they'll care about brand and reputation, but sales is how they're going to be judged ultimately in a lot of businesses. Not every business. Because they might be launching new products or whatever, but there's going to be this commercial element. And I'm not saying PR people shouldn't be commercially minded. They should, because their efforts should be underpinning broader business goals. But they just do things differently because PR people are probably more storytellers. They come more from a storytelling background. They do pitch media. I'm not saying they don't pitch media. Although I know some PR people who would never pitch media these days. That's what I'm saying. There's PR crosses quite a few boundaries. But, because now you can tell your story directly to the people. and when I started in public relations, yes, we were very heavy media-based. It was about building relationships with media. So we looked at it more as media relations. That's what it's called. But today, and so when, blogging and everything came out, that's why I jumped into it, because for the first time you can now communicate directly with your audience in a heartbeat. Now, when I started PR, I did a lot of newsletters. Funnily enough, newsletters have come back. But when I was doing them, we'd print them, Brendan, and proof them and post them out. And your deadlines couldn't be changing at the day before or on the day. You were stuck on some pretty heavy deadlines, and once it's printed, you can't change it, and it goes out. So you're more likely doing quarterly and half yearly versus monthly or weekly or fortnightly email newsletters that we see today. But that was content and telling the story and all of that side of things. And obviously no videos. Well, we used to do videos, but videos when I did them years ago, they were about 30, 40, 50 grand. And now you just whack out the phone and do it. So, the tools have changed, but the thinking about telling story, building reputation, that strategic communications and that side of things hasn't changed a heck of a lot. It just things have sped up. Audiences are splintered. The amount of channels has exploded, and the number of influencers are not measured in, handfuls in terms of media outlets, but thousands and millions in terms of everyone's an influencer.
It's a brave new world, mate. Now, a couple of questions to wrap up this episode. Questions without notice, I should add. Can you think of anyone, whether they're a client or just a personal brand or a business that is doing all of these and doing them reasonably well?
Probably not everything, because a lot of it's organic. So we've had on the show last season 6 towards the end, Alex Martin from Taurus Legal Management. So that was a case study with Alex. He walked through. So we'd been working together for a year. He started, so at the start he was doing nothing. So he was basically doing nothing. He was going around shaking people's hands at networking events, which again is, I would see that as a PR remit, because you're going out building relationships with people who might matter to the success of your business. So even going to networking events or, association events or conferences and stuff, that's a PR thing that should be factored into your thinking. I don't care whether you call it PR or whether you call it I'm going to a conference, but It's how it. If you put it under one banner and you start thinking about it strategically and where all these parts fit, then that's good. So he was doing that, but you can only do that so many times. And he runs a business with, 6 people. And he's a leading litigation specialist here in Melbourne, so one of the top ones. So, and he's a lawyer. So that's where he was. He was basically doing nothing. Maybe the odd thing on LinkedIn, but with no purpose. And over time, we got him on doing videos on YouTube. They are on YouTube, but mainly on LinkedIn. Short, sharp, utility-based. What are the questions? And it's an easy get for people, I think, for a lot of people to start. The utility content, who's your audience, and what are the questions they ask, their pain points, the challenges, what are the things that they need help with. So that's a really good place to start, and that's where we started. Just identifying the audiences was a good exercise as well. And then from there, it was a bit more about being active on LinkedIn, talking to other people, getting the social side of social media happening. I think that's underutilized by a lot of people. They use it more as a broadcast, not as a social element. And then he started commenting on media issues. And in his case, it was more about, he's a commercial lawyer, so it's about debt and things like that when people aren't paying you, coming into recessionary tight times, high interest rates, that side of things. But the other thing was a lot of court cases and defamation, which are essentially around reputation, and there's a business and a commercial element to that as well. So he started doing that. Then he started pitching to radio talkback around different elements of that. What's in the news? For him, in the news is a lot of those court cases. And so he's been picked up on that. Whether there's been a trademark issue or anything that's a commercial legal aspect that blows up in the media that he can comment on. So you've got to be quick out of the blocks, and he is. And now he's a favourite of a couple of radio stations, and I think he probably did 20 radio interviews last year, maybe, in his first year, which was fantastic. He was on national TV, and he wrote some op-ed pieces or some articles for some business publications. So he kind of did all, and a podcast, and a podcast. And he had a podcast, a lawyer and a financial advisor walk into a bar, and he does with Dave Murdoch, and that's still going, and it's a terrific podcast. So you've got a financial advisor who's Dave, and you've got the lawyer who is our friend at Taurus Legal, Alex. And so that's an owned media play, and that gives them a lot more things to repurpose and to get out there and publish on LinkedIn. So he's not using the paid side of things because it's kind of not in the remit of law firms. Tend not to do that sort of stuff. And he is doing direct because he is going direct to people.
And so, that's where, that his early days of going to those events. He
was doing the direct stuff at the end and going to those places, but it's also sitting down, having coffees with people. Mm. So, there's people who are, in his audience that he needs to, be reaching out to and talking to, and he's having coffees with them. So, I've seen your stuff. Do you want to have a coffee sort of stuff? So that's, and reacquainting with people that maybe not have talked to for a long time. Yep. And then you keep popping up in their feed, and that's when, conversation starts. So for a lot of people in professional services, it's all around about, sparking conversations out there and giving people a reason to take notice of you and to give you a call and that side of things. That's at the very simplest. That's a powerful strategy.
I like it, and that Alex's example is great. With that direct, it'd be a lot of business owners' experience of doing that, getting out, pressing the flesh, and it's you pushing it out there. But if you've done that base as you've described in your model, earned, owned, and social, you're going to have a lot more people coming to you to have those meetings, those direct communications, and you're getting in front of more of your target audience.
Correct.
Who are and just as importantly, they're already halfway through the funnel, or they're already advanced down that sales process.
That's right.
Built trust.
And there's some businesses like, commercial law is one where, litigation, you might never need them, but it's not a seasonal thing. With an accountancy, they've got, tax time at least, that it's a little bit more seasonal. But, it's about everyone thinks about it's about the leads and everything, and it's true, but it's about the reputation, because the lead is no good if the people check you out and they don't like what they see, because they can't find anything about you. You've got stock photos on your website, and there doesn't seem to be an expert, writing content or being upfront through any owned or social media channels. So I'm just a believer in that. Some people will say, well, I'm busy, I don't need to do any of that, and that's anyone's prerogative. All I coach people on is trying to make it. You can't do everything as well. I mean, when you said, is anyone doing everything in the pyramid? Yeah, I've got one client in particular where we're doing, where they're spending money on radio, which is old school, and that's driving traffic to the website, and then there's retargeting through Facebook and Instagram, etc. So, and the Google ad network. So but it's taken a while to get to that. But they've got a podcast. They've got 2 podcasts. They've got different audiences for different niches. They've got a blog that's an article's gone 50 articles every year for 3 years. So every week. Sorry, did I say an article every year? Yeah. 50 articles every year, one every week for over 3 or 4 years. So, and active on social media. So doing all the things, now we're at the stage where it makes sense to do the advertising as well. And they do the direct. They do go to the universities, and they do go to the associations, and they do talk. So they are doing all of those things. And even then, you're still trying, where's the gap? What do we plug? How do we join this up? How do we make stuff work better? But the base comes down to, you're the media company first. You build that base of owned media. You connect with people on social media. You share your content through social. If you want to go down the earned media path and get closer to influencers or podcasters or journalists or editors of writing in your area or bloggers, that's a great thing to do. And then you move. You might not do any of the sponsorship stuff or any of the partnership stuff. Smaller businesses tend not to do that. They might do some little community stuff. If they're within a town or a small community, they'll probably sponsor the local footy club or something. That still counts. But less of my clients are likely to do that. It tends to be bigger. And then there's obviously the paid. And by all means pay, but, be strategic about it and make sure, in my mind, you build the base first. And as you know, Brendan, a lot of people who are solo consultants, for example, are still paying on Facebook. They're still paying on LinkedIn. They're still spending small amounts of money, but it's still money, hard earned, to get there, to woo an audience, to get in front of an audience that they haven't been able to organically. And there's a big role for that.
Trevor, my final question for you, as we're turning the spotlight on you this episode. So in terms of your become your own PR machine pyramid.
Yeah.
PRMP. How are you? Where are your gaps in this? I mean, obviously you'd be across many of these. Do you have gaps? Is there areas you've been cyclical in using or moving away from, or do you change focus at different times? Where are you on the pyramid?
Yeah, I certainly change.
Or are you at the top? Is that you with the flag planted right at the top?
Never at the flag, mate. It's all about the journey. Look, I mean, and I've got to eat my own dog food to a large degree, so I'm probably on more channels than I need to be because I need to continue to experiment and try things out. So that keeps me pretty busy at the lower end of the owned media and social media. Obviously, social media I'm heavy in. LinkedIn and Twitter are my 1-2 punch. But I've only just a couple of weeks ago jumped onto TikTok, so that's ticking along and talking along, if I may say that, and Instagram. I've got obviously the PR Warrior blog that's been around since 2007, so a bit of a creature of habit. The Reputation Revolution is, what are we up to, about episode 270 or something, so I think this one is. So that's one of my owned media. But I guess from there it's the evolution. Are you changing your story? You're bringing more things in. For a long time there I was very skewed very much around personal branding and thought leadership. But then, I'm working with people who want a little bit more broader as well. The business brand. Yes, they come to you for the personal brand, but then there's a dotted line back to the business brand, and we end up doing a fair bit of work there. And I'm rediscovering PR again. I mean, I've for a long time there, I might say I'm doing content-led communications and I'm doing this, but I'm sort of revitalising PR Warrior, and I'm just comfortable where I understand PR is, and I know that the education job to get people to understand, and I don't want to be known as a PR person in terms of come to me and I'll get you some free PR, because that's not what I do. I don't want to do that. I teach people, the owned, the earned and the social is my remit. I understand, obviously, the sponsorship and the partnership stuff because I've done that all my life. I've done a fair bit on the paid side, but working with others. I bring others who are experts in that into the fold. I don't sit there and do the ads at all, but I make sure that it is supported by the base that we work on. And there's, because I'm close with my clients and we're coaching them and stuff like that, we do talk about opportunities, from a direct side of things, but more so the earned. I'm doing a lot more of that. I'm seeing a lot more people are starting to get excited about the earned side. And mate, earned is also speaking engagement, speaking, and I'm not talking about speaking for money because that becomes a commercial thing, but using the stage to get your name out there, to extend the reach of your voice, to broaden, your audience and that side of things. Speaking is earned media. The stage is the media. And the earned side is you've either pitched or someone's come to you. They've got the audience and you're earning the right to talk on that stage. And so you can't just walk up to anyone and say, can I be a part of your seminar or your conference? It just doesn't work that way. You've got to earn that. And one of my clients at the moment is, going back down that side of things after, giving it away a number of years ago. So I'm liking the earned media side. I think there's, because it's not just media anymore. There's a lot of freelancers. It's a really fragmented area. And I do love the idea about, podcasting and starting small and doing some opinion pieces. And I don't pitch that on anyone's behalf. If someone wants to really invest in that, I use people who do the pitching for them to the media. Otherwise, there are different services. There are news wires that you can do. I teach and educate because I think it's something that people can do in-house. I really do. And you know what? Some of the best PR people have never studied. They just get it. They run businesses. Once they understand the space and they're philosophically aligned in this way, then everything they do is PR and they see that. And then they might say, okay, now we need to market something. We need to put some juice behind this. We need to, build a funnel or whatever. Go nuts. Because you're building your base. Your base is being built. Your relationships are being built. And you're out there, developing relationships with the right people. Starting the conversations, adding value, public relations.
Trev, you've been a very expansive guest. Thank you for your openness today. Is there any other closing comments you might have? Anything else you wanted to cover off about this topic?
Yeah, I know we've talked about this, for want of a better term, marketing communications pyramid and where all the elements fit together, and then what does PR look like on top of that. So go to trevoryoung.me/PR machine and check it out there, because hopefully it'll all make sense, and then go back and listen to this if nothing does make sense. But I will say there is part of that, if you do have a look at it, I've got in there building the foundations about recognition, resonance, relationships and reputation. And that's what I find that PR is best at doing. So recognition is brand recognition, but not just, I know that person, I know their name, or I know their logo or whatever. It's that they recognize for all the right reasons. The other one is resonance. And this is something we've all got to do, is make sure our content, our story, our message is resonating with our desired target audience groups. The third one is relationships, which we've given a fair go at today, and building relationships, public relationships with people. And then reputation is obviously building, nurturing, protecting your reputation, whether it's personal brand or business brand reputation in the marketplace. So check that out, and I'd be interested to see what people hit me up on Twitter at Trevor Young, or in the DMs on LinkedIn. We should be connected on LinkedIn. If you're listening here, please connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm easy to find, Trevor Young. And yeah, you did mention become your own PR machine. I think that's my new mantra. I think it's something that people can. It is a machine it's a machine with a heart. It's a machine with a heart. You got to throw your heart and soul into the PR side of things. And yeah, it's if you can learn these things. And I will say, Brendan, you're in business, you're doing this. People are doing these things anyway. They just probably don't realise that they need to be pulled together and be strategic and know what to dial up and dial down and put it in a plan. And that's the guts of what I do. I put all this stuff in a plan for people, and then help them execute and train them and educate them and prompt them and keep them accountable. But people are doing this all the time. I'm not saying this is new. What is new is being able to philosophically have a philosophy around it, whether you agree with it or not, and see where the moving parts are and see what you need to do and what, importantly, you don't need to do. Because as you say, there's a lot in it, and you can't do it all at once, and you might not have to do everything. In fact, if you're running a personal brand-based business, you probably won't do everything. You'll just focus on those core things that are really necessary. But to do that, you've got to know what they are, and you've got to have that strategy plan.
Trevor, wonderful chatting to you. I'm sure the listeners have got a lot out of that, hearing you break down how to become your own PR machine model. Do yourself a favour, listeners, check it out. trevoryoung.me/PR machine. Trev, thanks again. Appreciate your time, and don't be a stranger.
I'll try not to. Thanks, Brendan.
Cheers, bye.
The reputation economy is here. The world today needs more genuine, credible experts and leaders to stand up and share their experience, their wisdom, their stories and ideas. Are you in?